All right, let's talk about something that happens in courtrooms all the time, but you might not even realize it. It's one of the most powerful and often invisible forces at play, the legal presumption. This is a hidden rule that can completely flip a case on its head, deciding who has to prove what, and sometimes making certain facts totally impossible to challenge. So how does this work? Let's get into it.
To really get a feel for just how powerful this concept is, we're going to start with a real-world story. And this is one that seems to turn the whole idea of innocent until proven guilty completely upside down.
So, here are the facts, and they're pretty grim. These are from a real case. You have a young woman who, after living with her own parents for years, goes back to her marital home. Just 1 month later, she's dead. Now, based only on those facts, the law steps in and does something pretty shocking.
And that's the big question, right? Not might they be responsible, but why does the law force a judge to start from a place of assuming the husband's family is guilty? I know, it sounds totally backward, but figuring this out is the key to understanding everything we're talking about today.
So how can the law command a court to do that? Well, it all comes down to this concept of legal presumptions. So what in the world are they? Let's break it down.
Okay, so a legal presumption is not some wild guess or a gut feeling. It's a logical leap that the law either allows or sometimes forces a court to make. You take one thing that you've proven, let's call it fact A, and you use it to infer that fact B is also true. It's basically the legal system's way of connecting the dots, especially when direct proof is hard to find.
Let's make this super simple with a classic example. Picture this: your valuable necklace gets stolen. A week goes by, and then the police find it in someone else's possession. Now, the one thing we know for sure, the proved fact, is that this person has your necklace. So what can a court logically infer from just that one fact?
And this is where it gets really interesting, because that one single fact can point in a bunch of different directions. A court might presume this person is the actual thief. Or, hey, maybe they just knowingly bought stolen goods. Then again, you could give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they had no idea it was stolen when they bought it. Or maybe they even got it as a gift. See? These are all possible presumptions, and as we're about to see, the law treats them very, very differently.
And that brings us to the real core of this whole thing. The law doesn't just have one type of presumption, it actually has 3 distinct levels, and each one gives the court a different amount of power. Let's walk through them. This table lays it out perfectly. First up, you have may presume. Think of this as giving the court a choice. It's discretionary. The court can make the inference, but it doesn't have to. And you can see it's rebuttable, meaning the other side can bring in evidence to try and disprove it. Next, you have shall presume. This one is a mandatory duty. The court must make the assumption. It's also rebuttable, but a huge thing has just happened. The burden of proof has shifted. And finally, there's the big one, conclusive proof. This is the final word. It's irrebuttable, meaning the court treats the inference as a proven fact, and no evidence, I mean zero, is allowed to challenge it. Game over.
Okay, so that's the theory, but what does this actually look like in a real courtroom? Let's find out, because the difference between these 3 levels can literally mean the difference between freedom and a conviction.
So what is the big deal between may and shall? Well, it is huge. Let's compare 2 really tragic situations. In a case where a married woman has died by suicide, the law says the court may presume her in-laws were involved. The court can look at the evidence and has a choice whether to make that assumption. But in a dowry death case, the law is way stricter. It says the court shall presume the in-laws are responsible. There's no choice. The assumption is mandatory.
And this takes us right back to that case we started with. That was a suspected dowry death, which is a shall presume situation. The second the basic facts were established, that she died within a month of returning home, the court had a legal duty to presume the husband's family was guilty. The burden of proof completely flipped. It was no longer the prosecution's job to prove their guilt, it was now the family's job to prove their innocence.
All right, now for the heavy hitter, conclusive proof. This is where the law draws a line in the sand. It basically says, this is the final answer. We are not hearing any arguments about it.
A perfect example of this is this ancient rule called doli inca pax. It's pretty straightforward. If a 6-year-old child is accused of a crime, that case is over before it even starts. The law makes an irrebuttable, conclusive presumption that a child that young is simply incapable of forming criminal intent. You could have a video of the act and a dozen witnesses. It doesn't matter. The court is legally forbidden from even considering it. Case dismissed.
Here's another one that's just as powerful, and this one has to do with the legitimacy of a child. The law says that a child born to a married woman is conclusively presumed to be the biological child of her husband. This rule is all about protecting the child and creating social stability. And let me tell you, the courts guard this rule fiercely.
And don't just take my word for it. The Supreme Court has been crystal clear on this. They've said that courts can't just go around ordering DNA tests to challenge a child's parentage. The only way to get around this conclusive proof is if the husband can prove he had absolutely zero physical access to his wife around the time of conception. If he can't prove that, the presumption is absolute. He is the father. End of story.
So you might be thinking, wow, this all sounds really rigid, maybe even a little unfair. So why? Why does the law create these incredibly powerful, sometimes unchallengeable rules? Well, the answer is that they're seen as a necessary shortcut, a tool to make justice work.
A landmark case from way back in 1979 put it perfectly. Presumptions aren't just random rules. They provide a roadmap. They give clear direction to the court and to everyone involved, which helps prevent legal chaos and just helps the system run more efficiently.
So when you boil it all down, these presumptions are absolutely vital. They help speed up trials and give judges a clear path forward. Critically, they shift the burden of proof to protect victims who can't speak for themselves anymore, like in dowry death cases. And they create this rock-solid certainty on fundamental social issues, making sure that some things are simply settled by the law.
And that's what I want to leave you with. These hidden rules of the courtroom are designed to protect the vulnerable and create legal order. But by forcing a conclusion, do they risk sacrificing the truth in an individual case for the sake of the system as a whole? Are they a vital tool for justice or a dangerous assumption? It's a fundamental tension, and it's right there at the heart of the law.